9 experienced hikers cut their tent open from the inside and ran barefoot into a Siberian snowstorm in the middle of the night. Search teams later found their bodies scattered across the mountain. Some were nearly naked. One was missing a tongue. And more than 60 years later, nobody knows what terrified them enough to flee. This was the Dyatlov Pass incident. In January 1959, a group of 9 Soviet hikers began an expedition across the northern Ural Mountains. Most of them were highly experienced. Several were certified ski hikers trained to survive extreme winter conditions. Their leader was a 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. The route was difficult but not considered impossible for a team with their skill level. The hikers carried enough supplies, proper winter gear, and navigation equipment to survive the journey. Nothing about the expedition initially suggested disaster. The group eventually reached the eastern slope of a mountain known by local indigenous people as Kholat Shakal, often translated as Dead Mountain. By the afternoon of February 1st, worsening weather and low visibility forced the hikers to stop and set up camp directly on the exposed slope. It was not an ideal campsite. The mountain offered little protection from wind, but the team still appeared calm. They pitched their tent, ate dinner, and settled in for the night. That was the last normal moment any of them would experience. Sometime after darkness fell, something happened outside the tent. Investigators would later discover that the hikers had not exited normally. The side of the tent had been cut open from the inside, not carefully unzipped, cut open, as if leaving immediately had become more important than using the actual entrance. And then came the strangest part. The footprints leading away from the tent showed that many of the hikers had left barefoot, or wearing only socks. Some appeared to have left without proper coats in temperatures approaching negative 30 degrees Celsius. Whatever made them flee, it happened so suddenly that experienced survival hikers abandoned the one thing keeping them alive. Weeks later, Soviet search teams finally located the campsite. The tent was partially collapsed under snow. Inside were the hikers' boots, heavy clothing, supplies, and personal belongings. Everything important had been left behind. The tracks in the snow led downhill toward a nearby forest nearly a kilometer away. Under a cedar tree, investigators found the first 2 bodies. Both men were barefoot. Both had attempted to start a fire. Branches above them were broken several meters high, suggesting one of the hikers may have climbed the tree in panic or desperation. The remains of burned clothing were scattered nearby. It looked less like an organized survival effort and more like people trying to stay alive after fleeing something terrifying. Over the following months, the remaining bodies were discovered across the mountain. Some appeared to be trying to return to the tent before collapsing in the snow. Others were found in a ravine covered beneath deep ice. Several had severe internal injuries. One hiker suffered massive chest trauma. Another had skull fractures. Yet investigators reported surprisingly little external damage on some of the bodies, almost as if tremendous force had acted internally. And then there was Lyudmila Dubinina. When rescuers found her body, her tongue was missing. Parts of her lips and facial tissue were also gone. The injuries fueled decades of speculation. Rumors spread quickly throughout the Soviet Union. Some believed the hikers had encountered a military experiment. Others suspected an avalanche, though many investigators argued the slope showed little evidence of one powerful enough to trigger blind panic. There were theories involving secret weapons tests, infrasound, hypothermia-induced paranoia, even attacks by unknown forces in the mountains. Adding to the mystery, some hikers' clothing reportedly showed traces of radiation. And several witnesses later described strange orange lights moving through the sky near the region around the same time. The Soviet investigation eventually closed with a vague conclusion. The hikers had died because of a compelling natural force. No further explanation was officially given. What makes the Dyatlov Pass incident so disturbing is not just how the hikers died, but how they behaved before death. These were not inexperienced tourists caught in a storm. They were trained survival hikers familiar with brutal winter conditions. And yet something convinced all 9 of them to abandon shelter, clothing, equipment, and basic survival instinct in the middle of a frozen mountain night. Even today, the tent remains the most haunting part of the case, because whatever happened inside those final moments was terrifying enough that staying in the tent felt worse than running into the Siberian darkness barefoot. And nobody has ever fully explained why.